how have you seen, with the internet as it is, and how people can find music and discovery, and it's a lot easier for people to get it, how have you seen the greatest differences in today's music world for you about how harder or easy it is for the artist to get out there and reach the world?
Well, it's both. It's harder and easier. It's harder because there are so many people making records now, because it's so much easier to make records. There's no cost of entry, essentially, to starting a record company or putting out your record. Whereas when I started, there were not that many record labels. When I started in England, there was EMI and Decca, and they had 95% of the business, those two labels. And then there was Philips and Pi, and they had 2% each, so the rest of the independents had 1%, and those were mainly like jazz labels or folk labels. So, as I say, it's harder and easier. I remember when I was, trying to promote records right in the very early stages, going and being turned down by Radio Luxembourg and thinking, boy, it'd be so great if one could just have your own TV station or your own radio station. And now you can have your own TV station and your own radio station, in a sense, because you can get your artist to be seen and heard through the internet. But there are billions of other people doing the same thing at the same time. So that's why I say it's harder and easier at the same time. This is the worst time for music publishers right now. And the main reason it's the worst is because publishers and record companies are kind of natural enemies somehow, because the record company wants to pay the publisher as little as possible. But now the record companies own all the publishers, basically, all the big publishers. The biggest publishers are now record companies. And the reason the record company is anti a publisher, because in very simple, oversimplified terms, a publisher gets 25% of the revenue, and the writer gets 75%. And in the record business, the writer gets, or the artist gets 25%, and the record company gets 75%. Therefore, the less they can pay the publisher, the better. There is no really strong leadership in publishing. There was in the past, but as I said, the record companies own all the publishers now. So this is a very bad and unhealthy situation, because in many cases all these internet entities, whether it be Spotify or Rhapsody or Napster or even Apple in the United States anyhow, they pay a bulk amount of money to the record company, including the publisher's share, and then the publisher has to wait and hope that the record company are going to pay them what they're going to pay them. And that usually involves ultimately litigation in order to get it. That's all the bad news. But the good news is that the laws of copyright are much more strong than the laws of masters. The laws, in other words, for protecting the songs are stronger than the laws for protecting the recordings. So I think ultimately this will straighten itself out. I hope so, but at the moment it is not a healthy situation in the United States. In the rest of the world, like for example in Europe, Apple pay the publisher their share and they pay the record company their share, and they pay it from source. And I happen to be a huge fan of Steve Jobs and of Apple, and I think Apple is the only entity which at least has a structure and a model where the artist, the writer, the various songwriters, the publisher, etc., can get paid. In a lot of the other ones, the only people that get paid are the major record companies, and very, very little, if anything, filters through to the people who created the music.
Question for you. as far as you brought up passion and you talked about, the early hustle of going out and selling your records and, what it takes and Dan's model of Putumayo and getting these records into every store that my Putumayo memory is the same of seeing it at a bookstore in Bronxville, New York, like that didn't sell any records. And so that level of hustle and, what it takes to get in the music business and succeed in the music business, what advice would you give potential managers, A&R people, publishers that see acts that motivate them, and how can they make that connection to that artist and, again, be a connector to take them out into the world?
Well, again, it depends how much you like what you're doing, and I mean particularly the artist. If you love what you're doing, you love playing and you love performing, if you really love that, you just have to be sure that you have patience, because in life, the best, if you love what you're doing, you just want to keep doing it. There's no hurry. There's no, the journey is what is great. Getting to the end of the journey is no, it's not the be all and end all. In many businesses, in many cases, most people, work at a job which is okay, but it's really they work at the job because they have mortgages to pay, they have to feed their family, etc. And they go to work, but they don't go to it in the same way, perhaps, that they're just loving to get to work. If musicians love what they're doing, and in most cases they do, the main thing is to just say, well, let's just go slowly. Just use the social media, use all the things that are available nowadays, just to build your career slowly and steadily. And if it takes 10 years, so much the better. It means you've got really, really good, you're really solid at what you're doing, and you'll have a lifelong career.